Hey guys, it's Liv here, and in today's video we're doing another Wi-Fi battle, and in this specific one we're actually going back to our roots and taking on a draft game. If you want to know more about this portion of the video, I guess I'll probably have covered it in the intro, I might not have, but just in case for anyone who's unaware, I did a lot of Draft League back in the beginning of the gen, where basically you draft teams of like 10 to 12 Pokemon, you battle your opponent, and you see who wins by counter-teaming their team or just beating them in the match. We're taking on Jack. He wanted to do a rematch of our teams from a league that we did together, and I said sure, because we never actually got to fight. But with that said, if you enjoy the content, leave a like and subscribe for more. With that said, I think as far as my lead goes, I'm going to try and bluff Zoroark as a Flygon lead. This team, barring Kyurem and Lando, doesn't really have a great switch in, and even to both of those Pokemon in particular, I would love to just get some initiative on them. Really, the best play here is just figuring out what Jack leads off with and playing around it accordingly. As far as the team goes, no Lele is amazing for me because it's nothing that's taking away my grassy terrain on Rillaboom, which is amazing. So I'll take it. With this team in particular, by the way, with Jack's build, his team had a lot more legends in minded, but my legend is a lot better. It's just how the draft league that we did together worked. So it's just one of those things where it was a lot of legendaries, and mine just happened to be better than his, in my opinion. Lugia is fucking phenomenal, so I will definitely take that. I forgot we bluffed this as Lugia, which is pretty bad for me. But it's not entirely terrible, actually. What I could do, I could actually trick a Scarf onto Regieleki, or I could just go hard into Flygon. My opponent, to be fair, probably is going to anticipate me to swap into Flygon anyway. And if Flygon dies to a Lecky, that's fine. I really brought it mostly for this. I didn't want to bring in Rillaboom just yet. I would rather truthfully just stop this thing from pivoting and make my opponent the hard swap altogether. This just allows me better initiative going forward. So we do find a Volt Switch on this, which is great. It's good information, if nothing else, trying to scout what my opponent's going to go for. Now they probably have to go for Rapid Spin, Explosion. They might go for a Reflect, but I highly doubt it. We'll just go for a U-turn regardless. I'm just going to try and nail them as quickly as possible. We do see the Reflect go off, though. So this is fine. Truthfully, Screen Zaleki isn't too bad for my team. If anything, this makes it easier if it's not going to go for Boom on us, so we'll definitely take that. As far as what I want to bring in then, because of the fact that we did see this thing go for a Reflect, I think I'm going to go right into Rillaboom here. If my opponent goes for Volt Switch on Rillaboom, I'm not too concerned, and AV Rillaboom should still actually chew this hit very efficiently. So I think from here, what I'll probably end up doing, and I do need to double check that last mon, because I forgot actually what the 6th mon was. I have the other 5 being Nagik, Cinderace, Regieleki, Kyurem, and Landorus. I know that it wasn't, let's see, so I know the last one at the very least wasn't, okay, so it was Scrafty. I was going to say, I knew it wasn't Lele. Okay, so there's dual Intimidate core, which is really good for me, actually. So as far as my switch in here, I think I'm going to go for a high horsepower. Actually, I'm going to go for a knockoff. Getting rid of most likely Landorus's item is going to be pretty beneficial. If not Landorus's, then Kyurem's will be beneficial. Especially if that's a Specs Kyurem, that could be very terrifying for me. Though it does seem like that Landorus is going to come in here, which I will definitely take. I figured it was probably either Landorus to try and specifically pivot out of me pretty freely while getting Intimidate off, or is going to be the Kyurem, just because of the fact that Kyurem had such a good glide switching matchup, while still not worrying about stuff like a high horsepower, which is probably why Landorus came in, because it's immune to high horsepower. So either way, this is good for me. As far as my play here, I'm going to go for a U-turn. I think that I might actually outpace the Landorus, and even still it seems more defensively oriented, so I don't entirely mind this. We do now know for a fact this is slower than my Rillaboom, which is good information. I crept a little over Kyurem on this, but it's good to confirm. So, as far as what I want to do on this turn, I think it's in my best interest to honestly just go right into, probably just right into Flygon here. I don't want to necessarily let the Aleki come in hard again because it could just get up another screen, and that's not best for me. Or I could just go for Explosion and take out Flygon unnecessarily. And truthfully, I would rather bring in my Flygon here because I think it's a decent opportunity to just go for a Life Orb attack. My opponent has no actual resist to Outrage, so I think I'm just going to click Outrage here. And if the Electric type comes in, so be it. Otherwise, though, this whole team is actually super weak to Outrage, so it's definitely in my best interest to click this. Even if something like a Scrafty comes in this turn, I will definitely take that because Landorus cannot take me out, and it lost its helmet, so it can't even really punish us either outside of maybe going for a knockoff. But we do know for a fact this is Stealth Rock Landorus. Not really a huge deal because I would need to knock off my Lugia for this to ever be concerning to me. Otherwise, I don't really care. So this Outrage should be some decent damage. My guess is Landorus is going to go for a U-turn. That did nothing. Oh, right, because of Reflect. Okay. So, knockoff here. We do confirm it has knockoff. I'm perfectly fine with this. Even with the crit, I don't entirely mind this, albeit one thing I will say is that this is a little bit annoying because I could have probably taken another, though I don't definitively know that. I wouldn't bet money on it at least. But I feel like I could have maybe at least rolled for another. So that's a little unfortunate. But even still, if I 3-turned, then this wouldn't work anyway. Flagon being dead is actually pretty beneficial though, because while Lecky can click Electric Boost pretty freely at this point, at the same time though, Rillaboom still is a great sponge with the Salt Vest, so I'm not too concerned there. I still have priority with Rillaboom as well, and yeah, I think that a Lecky can definitely get muscle passed, in my opinion. Just a little annoying that I had to lose Flagon like that. But we do know basically this is Landorus' entire moveset now, which is good information, unless it's for some reason a no-stab set, which is fine by me as well. So as far as my play this turn, what I think I'm going to do here, I think I'm just going to go right into Rillaboom in all honesty. I have no reason not to. Rillaboom should be pretty decent as far as this whole team goes. Even if the Landorus comes back in, that's fine. We're weakening U-turn for down the road, and we know that we also outpace. So I'm not overly concerned with that either. I think that it's in my best interest right now to go for, honestly, probably for a high horsepower. Because really the only switch into high horsepower will be Landorus. Everything else gets at least a decent hit off. Even Scrafty, I can at least get some nice damage between that and U-turn later on. So I'm not too concerned about even Scrafty going for this. I just can't really justify going hard in the Milotic predicting the Scrafty or Landorus to come in, because I do need to kill the Lecky before I can even try and pop that shenaniganry. So we see that this Volt Switch, of course, does like no damage at all. And they're definitely going to bring in Landorus here, right? I'm almost certain it's Landorus, but I didn't really feel the need to over-predict here. I would rather just get the tantrum off if my opponent tried to stay and go for screens. So Landorus does come in. Honestly, not a huge deal for me. How much does Rillaboom do versus Landorus? This is more defensive Landorus. I think that screens end this turn as well, I want to say. I'll have to double check. Okay, so it's not a huge deal. Info for Landorus. This does have 2 more turns of Reflect. Okay, good to note. So this probably ends up actually taking this hit very well now that I'm looking at the calcs. For a more defensive Landorus, to put in perspective, if we look at Grassy Glide plus Intimidate plus Reflect, it's doing practically no damage actually. So I think it's in my best interest this turn to probably just go right into Milotic. We know for a fact this is most likely going to go for a U-turn on this. I can't imagine it wouldn't go for the slow pivot, which is not a huge concern for me. I can just take a little bit of damage on Milotic and then bring back in Rillaboom. And even if I'm caught in this momentum vortex, it's perfectly fine because I'm just trying to burn through the turns of Reflect. That's really the best thing here. But thankfully, though, they didn't actually try and switch in, which is good for me, actually. It's really good for me. I'll go for Recover this turn. I would rather just try and keep this thing as healthy as possible. We haven't thankfully revealed that we're competitive Milotic, which is really good for us. And again, most likely this Landorus has Earthquake as its last move. They'll probably bring in Kyurem hard here, which is perfectly fine. We do see Chicken as the Mon, and this is in fact Kyurem. Perfect. Okay. So I could take Kyurem coming in, actually. This isn't a huge concern. They'll most likely probably go for an Earth Power and try to overpredict. But even still, I'm perfectly fine with this. I think that it's in my best interest always to go for a Recover on this turn. But I do want to double check that versus a Choice Specs Kyurem, because Choice Specs Kyurem could be a little scary. So versus my Milotic, yeah, it's in my best interest always actually to just click Recover here. Even if Freeze gets some good damage off, I'm not too... Oh, shit. I almost Dynamax. Damn Joy-Con drift. So it's always in my best interest, though, to scout the Kyurem information, because if for some reason my opponent clicks Earth Power here, for example, I actually take that hit very well. And not only this, but I could fish for a special defense drop and go for Dragon Pulse, even if my opponent for some reason just... Which they do seem very specs, by the way, I have to put that out there. Which is great for me, though, because my opponent has no actual Dragon Switch in. So even if Noggin and Dell tries to come in, which realistically it will never, this is the Mon that would actually be coming in, we're pretty set here. If they get a special defense drop, so be it. I get a really strong hit off on Kyurem. Even still, though, I get a strong hit off on Kyurem. But I could definitely take this, though. They'll probably go hard into a Lucky here, predicting I'm going to go for a recovery move, and that's fine. I just need Milotic healthy. I don't entirely care about a Lucky coming in because screens are gone, and I can just bring in Rillaboom hard later on and force a screen to turn something else to try and stop them from just pivoting on me initially. So they're going to withdraw here. That's perfectly fine. They're probably going hard Lucky. They're going into Gorda, which is the Regieleki. Yep, okay, this is fine. So Lucky coming in isn't a huge deal. I've gotten my Milotic back to full, and I can try and do the same sort of maneuver on Kyurem. Even if it's modest, I actually do guarantee take a single hit. And because of the fact that my Lucky switch in is now Rillaboom, I also get some nice passive recovery on this, even without the leftovers. So I'm really never actually too concerned about this. I just need to make sure that I'm not letting them get a screen up. And if they are, then I just need to start playing a little more aggressively around it, which is still not too concerning. because every time my opponent doesn't just go for Volt Switch, it's an extra free turn of terrain I get, because they're going for, let's say, a Reflect, for example, and then on top of that, I get a second Grassy Terrain turn. So this isn't a huge concern of mine. What I will do, though, is I think from here, I am going to go for a Grassy Glide and just get some nice damage off. Even if the Landorus does come in and Intimidate, it's not a huge concern. And if, let's say, Kyurem comes in, for example, I'm still fine with this. I just want to make sure that I'm not doing no damage to Landorus, is all. Plus, this is good damage on Regieleki, if nothing else, actually, so we'll definitely take that. As we can see, though, Regieleki is now taking like a third, and it's doing no damage with Volt Switch. So we can basically just recover this back up, albeit we're still losing health to hazards, but it's perfectly fine as long as I kill the Regieleki, because everything else should be muscled by Lugia, so I could definitely take this. Especially seeing that, actually, I could probably just position myself in a way where as long as I kill Regieleki, I could definitely just win with Lugia, because even with Kyurem, I could Toxic Stall, so I'm definitely going to take that. They're going to bring in Cinderace here. Cinderace is perfectly fine. I can actually finally go hard into Lugia here, because my goal with this is basically just to not let Milotic take more damage than it has to. So I'm going to go hard into Lugia at this point, and I should be able to just recover through this, actually. Lugia is meant to specifically chew this Cinderace, even if it's Life Orb Cinderace. Which if it is Life Orb, great, I could recover on it very easily. Bulk Up Cinderace is perfectly fine. Even with the +1, I actually still take this hit very obnoxiously well. So I'm kind of curious on actually what this will go for this turn. So a +1 Cinderace versus Lugia, which is pretty full. Pyro Ball shouldn't do any actual real damage. In fact, I can actually not only go for a Pyro Ball, but I can go for a Toxic this turn as well. If my opponent goes for Gunk Shot, good play, at least to get around the Toxic. But thankfully, though, they just go for Libero, for the Libero Pyro Ball. So I'll definitely take this. If they're Life Orb even, they're still not doing shit, and I should still be able to recover through this. They have confirmed at the very least they're definitely not Life Orb, so I could just start going for Roost Spam. Even with them being +1, it's not a huge concern of mine, actually, because they do negligible damage. To put it in perspective, I should always be recovering through this, even without my actual item. So I'll definitely take this. We're going to go for a Roost here, though. They would, to put it in perspective, they would basically need to get consistently good hits off and also not miss any of their moves. The Gunk Shot goes off, it's fine, it does as much, but it has a higher chance to miss. If they get a Poison, that's a little annoying, but I can manage. Thankfully, though, oh, fuck, I spoke too soon, we did get poisoned. Fuck, okay. So this is a little unfortunate for sure, but it's not the end of the world, actually, because what I can actually do here, I can let Lugia go down, I think, is my best play. Because I just need to kill the Cinderace, and once Cinderace is gone, I can muscle the team probably enough for my Scizor to win. As long as I get a little bit more chip on the Regieleki, which I think is pretty manageable here, I should be in a pretty good position to just let this go down. Also, my opponent has to basically keep hitting their moves at this point, because this poison is only a regular poison on me, whereas theirs is an actual Toxic. And also, unlike my opponent, I have legitimate recovery. So even despite the fact that I'm taking Toxic damage and I'll never really keep multi-scale at this point, it doesn't actually matter a ton. They're going to bring in the Regieleki here, which is perfectly fine by me. I think that what I'll do at this point, I'm definitely going to keep Lugia around. Actually, am I going to keep Lugia around? I don't think I'm going to. And the big reason I mentioned that is because the fact that I think that Regieleki might take advantage of this turn to go for some sort of, I don't know, I might take advantage of this to go for a Volt Switch. And truthfully, I would rather not let it. But let me double check real quick. So Regieleki with a special attacking set versus me. Volt Switch actually wouldn't KO weirdly. Well, it can't guarantee the KO actually. And this assumes that it's modest as well. So what I think I'm going to do, I think that I'm going to go for a Roost here, because whatever comes in next most likely will be slower than me. And I do genuinely anticipate the Volt Switch. And it might not even KO because we know it's not even Life Orb. So we'll definitely take this, actually. This is huge. I'm kind of shocked that Regieleki did, like, no damage there. This is a Pokemon that typically, you know, obviously it's weak to Regieleki. It's not like Multiscale was intact either. It's kind of incredible to think about. It's really beautiful, actually, because my opponent can't successfully break this. Their check to this is 100% Kyurem now, though. And they're gonna go into it for sure. So I will definitely take that. Because on Kyurem, what I can actually do, I think I'm going to go for a Roost on Kyurem. Because my opponent basically has a couple options here. Either I can Roost and scout their move before going into Scizor. Their Ice Beam should actually be recovered on at that point. Or B, what I could do, if they're, let's say, going for a Draco Meteor, I can now actually outstall their Dracos. I do guarantee creep specs. I know this was doing specs rolls. So in theory, I just need to actually recover this turn. Similarly to the Milotic, it's just about scouting what the fuck this Kyurem is going to do. Now, I can't stay in turn 2, actually, unlike Milotic. I do need to swap accordingly. But it's still good information, and especially the fact that we have now put our multi-scale intact. It's doing pretty good. We have seen a freeze dry lock confirmed. So what I think I'll do from here, I am going to actually stay in one more turn, because by staying in one more turn, they're most likely going to go into Cinderace here. I would be genuinely shocked if my opponent doesn't take advantage of this to go into Cinderace. So I'm going to stay in for one last turn and try and just make sure I'm not losing initiative. Because when Cinderace comes in, it's taking free poison damage. They're actually going to bring in a Lecky instead, which is still perfectly fine. From here, I think I'm going to actually go for a Toxic this turn. My guess is Lecky will not stay in, and it's going to either click... Well, it's either going to click Reflect, I think, and anticipate a swap into Rillaboom, or it's probably going to Volt Switch into Kyurem. And if I get a Kyurem Poison, that's also really huge. I don't really need to play the Recover game this turn, though, because a Lecky would need to click T-Bolt, which, if it does, fine by me, to actually put itself in a good position here. I will say, though, if they click T-Bolt, I'm actually going to sack, but I can't really afford to not. So they will go for a Volt Switch here, perfectly fine. It doesn't really matter. I just need to get the Kyurem Toxic because I can recover from there, and I should take any hit guaranteed. As long as it doesn't go for Draco. I think Draco might actually get me, but again, even still, getting that Kyurem poisoned is really huge for my endgame. They're going to go into Candyman, the Naganadel here. Not bad, actually. That was a good play by Jack. It's a nice Toxic immunity there, and it puts me in a really bad position, actually. So good play by my opponent for sure. I do not need to let this Pokemon go down, though I am not going to go down without a fight. I will go for an Ice Beam at least, and if my opponent tries to take advantage of this and go for a Plot, that's really good for me. They'll actually go for U-turn here, so this is perfectly fine as well. If they go into a Pokemon that's slower, this is great for me. If they go into Cinderace or Regieleki, I need to sack, because I can't really afford to just leave this around. It's a liability, keeping it around for stuff like Kyurem or Landorus. They'll actually go into Gordo here, so getting off good damage on the Aleki is huge. I can definitely take this, and again, I'll just let this go down. If my opponent, well, actually, I'll go for a Roost, I think, because if my opponent for some reason tries to overpredict and goes for a Screen, thinking I died of poison this turn, I would rather not. I'd rather not keep Lugia unhealthy at least if I am going to keep it around, or more so if I'm going to let my opponent get an attack off and they're just going to switch around on me. I'd at least rather force them to get the attack that they need to do, because if let's say they go hard Cinderace because I'm clicking Ice Beam probably, that's fine. I'll be recovered up though. There's no reason to burn a Toxic turn doing that. They'll actually go for a Light Screen here, which is still perfectly fine by me. I think I still actually take this Lucky hit, funny enough, after the Roost. Or at the very least, I'm sure it's a roll. I might not take it, to be fair, but I think it was doing around 90 to me, and I should have enough to take this. So I will definitely take that. My goal here is definitely just to go for one more Roost. If I die, so be it. Again, my goal is not to actually try and KO this at this point. It's just to make sure that a Lucky is not on the field, because if I can make sure it's not getting up dual screens, I'm fine with this. So Volt Switch is going to go off. That's fine. Lugia is gone, and I get some nice initiative. We've gotten some good damage off on the Lucky now. We've gotten some good damage off on Cinderace, and Kyurem's still kind of fodder. From here, I can definitely go right into Zoroark as long as Scrafty doesn't come out. If Scrafty comes out, though, I'm going to try and play around it, and I'll probably go into Milotic. But regardless, though, I'm probably fine. Even with, well, I know obviously that Scrafty won't pop my Intimidate at that point, or my competitive at that point. I'm still okay with just going into Milotic, though, and getting off some good damage. I could actually go into Rillaboom, maybe, but I don't know. Alright, so the Naganadel comes in. I am definitely just going to go into Milotic here, because of the fact that I really just want to make sure that I'm taking this out. I can't really go into Zoroark and bluff that I'm Rillaboom. There's no way my opponent would believe that. But I can bring in Milotic, though. And going for the Milotic here, I think that my best play is definitely just go for a Dragon Pulse. Their switch into this is non-existent, and even with the Light Screen up, they should still take a good amount. To where, at the very least, I'm sure that this plus a Bullet Punch from Scizor should be plenty to take out Naganadel. And there's no reason not to get off damage at this point, to be honest. So, they'll go for U-turn here. Really not a huge concern of mine. I couldn't really afford, though, just in case they sit in, to go for any other sort of attack here. So, the bigger concern, though, is that I no longer think I can actually recover through Kyurem, but it's not really a risk I could have afforded. If they went for Nasty Plot, I was kind of screwed. So they're going to bring in Kyurem here, though. Kyurem should still take some good damage if nothing else, and I think that one more Dragon Pulse should be enough to take it out next turn. So I might even be able to actually just afford the trade anyway, because I really just brought this as mostly just an offensive Pokemon here. I think I'm actually going to go hard into Scizor. I've yet to bring in Scizor at all on this Pokemon, and Earth Power still shouldn't do a substantial amount of damage. I can then from there go for a nice U-turn and just try and get some initiative back in my favor. Because mostly like on whatever Pokemon comes in on Scizor, I can bring in my Milotic and get a nice recover up on that. Something like a Cinderace or a Naganadel most likely. But even still, just the momentum I would gain from this is great. Plus, if Kyurem does stay in for whatever reason, so be it. I should be fine with taking a Freeze Dry on my next Pokemon. So I'll go for a U-turn here. I don't really want Cinderace coming in. I think that mon's kind of terrifying for this team in particular, especially since Luca did get poisoned by Gunk Shot. I couldn't really preserve it like I wanted to otherwise stall this team with. They're going to go into Lopez here. That's fine. The Landorus is really not a huge concern without Rocky Helmet. It no longer really does anything outside of just dropping my attack. And because I have the initiative now, and the fact that my opponent does not have a light screen up, I can actually just go right into Rillaboom, because Rillaboom should be a pretty decent check to this. Not only this, but actually I'm going to go into Zoroark and bluff Rillaboom, because my guess is that my opponent is probably going to bring in Cinderace hard, and I could just take it out with Zoroark entirely. So from here, we're going to go into, oh, you know what? Right, they know. They definitely know. Okay, so they're not going to do that. I'm going to just go for a Focus Blast. Scrafty is definitely coming in here. If Landorus stays in, so be it. But I don't really... Actually, I'm going to go into Milotic, actually. I think they're just going to go hard into Scrafty since they're only Dark Resist. And I can pop my competitive at this point and get some nice damage off, since that will also get me a nice recover turn, too. But there's no way in hell they're just going to... There's no way they're going to U-turn. Because if they sack Landorus there, it's a pretty good check to a lot of things. Fuck, okay. So they did just go and try and sack the Landorus there. Good play, good play. Maybe he didn't realize that Grassy Terrain didn't go up. Either way, it really actually sucks that, that my opponent went for just the raw U-turn. That might actually cost me a ton. They're going to go into Gordo here, the Regieleki. That's fine. Okay. So as far as my play here, this is a little annoying, actually, I can't lie. I think I do need to let Milotic go down, which is a little unfortunate. Actually, no, I can afford to go into Rillaboom one more time. But when I do, I think I just need to be prepared to sack it. Because when Cinderace does come in or when Kyurem comes in, I just need to raw attack, and it's in my best interest to do so, because otherwise I'm going to make sure I'm just in a cycle where Rillaboom is going to die. And I think that Milotic still has an actual endgame here, so I'm not too concerned with this. So I think that I'm just going to let my opponent Volt Switch. It's not a huge concern of mine. I actually take this pretty well. But I can't really afford to keep Rillaboom around, because even with rocks and the recovery, Rillaboom's just going to become a liability. And if my opponent goes for like a Thunderbolt, let's say, I don't think I take two, even after the Stealth Rocks at this point. So they're going to bring Candyman the Naganadel. It's fine. I think I'm definitely just going to go for a... I think I'm just going to go for a Tantrum here. I would truthfully rather just take this out. Actually, a high horsepower, but still same sort of point. I want to just take this out, and if that means that I need Rillaboom to go down to a Sludge Wave, I'm not too concerned. This is probably a choice set. I can't imagine it isn't, though maybe it's Focus Sash. My hazard setters from the ones I could have picked from, for anyone, again, who didn't realize this was a counter team game, where we both knew each other's potential Pokemon. I didn't really have great rockers, so this could believably be Sash. My opponent is going to go for U-turn, though. That's honestly not too bad. They'll probably go, if I had to guess, into Landorus. Landorus is a pretty good check at this point. But that's fine. If they go Lando, I can just go for Glide. They are going to go Lando. Oh, no. Okay. So, yep, Landorus is going to get intimidated off. I think I just have to go for Glide. Again, at this point now, because of Stealth Rocks, I can't actually sufficiently take this hit. Because I'll just go into Rillaboom and sack to Rocks plus the Volt Switch. So it's in my best play to always just go for a Glide here. I think if my opponent lets me get some recovery back, so be it. But also if my opponent goes for a U-turn here, that's also fine. We actually barely... Oh, that Lando barely lives. Okay, because that could have been kind of cool. Though, I will say not letting Naga get a Beast Boost is nice. And I think, weirdly enough, I still can unironically win this. But it depends on how fast the Regieleki is. Because Zoroark actually is in a nice position here, to where if I can kill the... If I can kill the Regieleki, well, if I can make sure something else takes out the Scrafty, I think I'm actually fine to just start nailing down the team. It depends on a few factors, to be fair. I won't act like it's pretty for me, but it's definitely still winnable, weirdly enough. It's just really not in my favor. So, Regieleki could totally just outpace me, but at the same time, though, maybe I'm going to get really lucky here. Does Scizor actually take this out? Because if Scizor can go for Bullet Punch here, I'm just going to go into that. My opponent's definitely not going to believe that... Okay, it definitely does not take this out. Yeah, my opponent's not going to believe for a second this is Milotic, but again, I don't have a better option here exactly. Also, I've definitely over-predicted on a few turns here, so maybe my opponent doesn't actually go hard Scrafty, and maybe they don't even account for the fact that I might just outpace them. Who knows, really? I'll be honest, I genuinely don't. They might also just sack Regieleki to go for screens, but I don't know why, because Thunderbolt frails my team if it has it. They're actually just going to go for a light screen here. And that's also fine, in all honesty. I think that I could still, weirdly enough, take this out, maybe? Can I take this out? I do not. Are you fucking kidding me? Okay. Yeah, no, this is probably game, in all honesty. I can't imagine that I take this next hit. Though I will say maybe I do. I would be genuinely shocked, though. I can't really over-predict either. Like, if this goes for a Volt Switch, so be it. They're just going to actually sack Regieleki. So their only offensive move probably was Volt Switch. Then I can't imagine any other reason that play would be made. Which, weirdly enough, opens up Milotic actually a lot. I do need the Kyurem gone. It's the one exception. But if I can clear Kyurem, I'm actually in a pretty good position, in my opinion. So... it depends. What are they going to go into? My money is on Kyurem, which if Kyurem does come in, I'm pretty okay with that. The only other mon that I could see coming in is if that Naganadel Scarfed. Alright, so this is Anti-Flag. That's the Scrafty coming in. This is a Moxie set. Okay, so this is definitely Dragon Dance Scrafty. From here, I'm going to go into Scizor actually, and I'm going to U-turn on this. Because I could slow pivot. Scizor probably takes at least a single hit. And I could still actually revenge off Kyurem offensively with Bullet Punch, so I'm not too concerned. As well as with Zoroark. But my goal here is to U-turn into Zoroark. And then I'm going to try and just hope I outpace it and go for a Focus Blast. Because I think it's my best case scenario to actually win this. And I mean like a crit Focus Blast. It's really my best way. But if nothing else, we have at least avoided the 6-0 now. So I will definitely take that. And a lot of the teams really want to. So it's one of those games where I don't entirely mind. We'll go for a U-turn now. If my opponent decides to just go for a raw attack, so be it. They're actually going to go for Bulk Up here. So Bulk Up and Dragon Dance on the same set, which is pretty decent actually. Good for stuff like Scizor matchups. Especially with how physically offensive a lot of my team was. Definitely a good play by my opponent, and they're going to clearly chew this hit. So from here, I'm going to bring in my Zoroark, disguised as Milotic. My opponent's probably going to know, again, this is Zoroark, but I don't really have another choice. What I need to do here, though, I need to basically trick this thing a Scarf, and I need to hope it goes for a setup move. If they go for the attack, I think it might just be game, in all honesty, because I don't really have another way to beat this sort of set. But because it's Dual Dance, it's basically 50-50 that they click another offensive move. Did they click another setup move? So what's it gonna be? Are they gonna click a setup move? They're gonna give me the leftovers, which is decent. They're gonna go for Drain Punch. Okay, so yeah, I think it might just be game. I can't imagine that I actually take this hit. And the fact that I gave them the Scarf is pretty big. But at the same time, though, I could, in theory, actually stall that out. But it depends on how much a +3 Scrafty does. +3 Scrafty. Yeah, no, that guarantees the 2 KO. Shit. Okay, so then how much does Milotic take? Yeah, still. Okay. So this is like definitely a game for sure. Oh well, honestly, just happens. I couldn't really do a ton there anyway. If let's say I click Focus Blast with Light Screen up, even if they were like no bulk on their set, I'm pretty sure I still lost guaranteed without like an absolute crit. So I can't really imagine actually. Yeah, in fact, I couldn't even KO it. I would literally have guaranteed needed a crit. What I'll do here, I'll go for a Roost just for the sake of maybe my opponent just switches out here, which would be huge, but there's no reason for them to. Like they do pretty much. Oh my god, they didn't even KO. What the fuck? Okay, so how not offensive is this set? Versus Scizor. Because there's no way that actually, I think they literally got a Mineral. Which even still, I don't even think that they can actually from here not KO me. Well, actually, okay, so if they keep literally getting like Minerals, I can maybe unironically stall them out. But that's kind of what it's come down to now. I basically need to stall out my opponent's Drain Punches and hope for no crit, for no good damage rolls. Clearly they're not getting it yet, which is kind of insane. I wonder if they... Oh, you know what? They're Shed Skin. They're not actually... I wonder if... Yeah, I think they're Shed Skin, actually. I don't even think they claimed another KO, which is huge, actually, because I could PP stall this in theory. And if Cinderace comes in, then I sack and I go into Milotic and I start trying to snowball from there, because it's no longer a Scarf set. Unironically winnable, but not a lot. In fact, no, actually, I think I guarantee lose. I do kind of need to make a play at a certain point, because I can't actually let this thing just continue going for Drain Punches unpunished. Because eventually they are going to, in theory, go into Cinderace. And when Cinderace comes in, I need to be ready with Milotic already on the field. So this has now become a game of making sure that I am not going to get fucked by Kyurem. Because if I let Kyurem come in, then that's kind of unfortunate. Just to make sure, this is definitely a +2 Scrafty, right? It's just a +2 Scrafty? Yep, it's a +2 Scrafty. Okay. I had to make sure I didn't, for some reason, just miss a set. I'm going to go for one more Roost here, and then I'm going to go for U-turn. If my opponent goes for the switch here, then I lose. If they go into Cinderace here specifically, I lose the game. Because I can't actually play around that successfully. If they do go into Cinderace here, okay. So I think that this is in theory a game. To be fair, because they don't even have a reason to not click Pyro Ball. I actually do need to 100% bank on a miss this turn specifically, because otherwise I actually have no out. I can't really switch hard into Milotic either, because Milotic is way too unhealthy, and I literally just need to hope for a miss. Actually, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go for a knockoff here, and I'm going to hope that they maybe just go for an overprediction with oh, they don't. They go for Bulk Up. Okay. This is kind of big, because in theory I might be able to KO them with Toxic, which could be decent actually, since the Scrafty is now choice locked. I could in theory maybe make this work, but it's not going to be pretty. I would basically need to make sure that I can like crit their weakness policy. That's kind of clever actually. I like the weakness policy tech. Okay. I need to basically make sure that they're not going to go for a Pyro Ball and hit. That's really what I need here. I just need them to not hit Pyro Ball. I'm gonna go for Bullet Punch here. If they, like, I have no other actual play. I just need to kind of hope I can crit a Bullet Punch, get some damage off, like any damage off, which I think I might have crit. I did not. Can I dodge? Can I dodge the Pyro Ball? Can I dodge the Pyro Ball? I did not. Okay, that's unfortunate, but honestly, it was very much in their favor. But it is what it is. So, yeah, they should KO. The crit literally never would have mattered in a million years. That probably killed 4 of my Scizor. But okay. So, do I have an out? In theory, technically, Cinderace actually does die guaranteed this turn to poison. So if I do dodge this next hit, I could maybe bank off of Kyurem getting crit. But even still, Freeze Dry I think just takes me out, and I think it guarantees the KO. I'm gonna play to my out. I know to be fair, I played a lot of stall this game, and I'm sure that some people are gonna comment down below saying that they do not enjoy watching stall. And that's fine, more power to you. But it is my out nonetheless. I'm gonna go for it. My opponent does in fact win the game though, so GG to my opponent. Jack is a phenomenal battle, obviously. He made sure to kill it in this match, so hopefully you guys do enjoy. And if you want to check out more from him, his link will be down below. If you did enjoy this video though, make sure to leave a like as always and subscribe for more content. Links to the Twitter and Discord are both down below in the description. And if you want to become a channel member today, it's only a few dollars a month and you can support the channel monetarily. I really appreciate it. Speaking of, shout out to our channel members being Josh K Ultra Player, Mia, and Zeke0. Your support is amazing and I greatly appreciate you. I will see you guys in tomorrow's video. Until then, peace out guys.